Hey there, this is Rob McNeese from the Secure Exchange Solutions EDI Operations team. Thank you very much for taking some time today to learn about CEEM version 8.2.1. There are many great new features in this version. These short videos will show you how this new and improved functionality is used. Please email us at mhbe_ses_team@qssinc.com if you have questions, comments, or ever need assistance with CEEM or Doer. Please note, during this presentation, some portions of the screen not relevant to the topic being discussed may be covered by boxes or otherwise obscured. Even though we are illustrating this new functionality in our beta test environment, we want to ensure that no PHI is displayed during this video. One of the most exciting features of CEEM version 8.2.1 is prepopulation of consumer data. This consumer data is based on 834 transactions that have been previously delivered to qualified health plans. Existing enrollment data from the SES Doer, or Daily Operations EDI repository, has been used to prepopulate the CEEM application. This data can be accessed by CEEM users so that they can use it as a starting point for life event transactions. This functionality is based on a HIXID-based search function. This allows users to type in a HIXID or part of a HIXID, find the consumer that the life event needs to be processed upon, and then update them very much the same way that life events were created in version 7.5.1. Once the HIXID or partial HIXID has been entered, all of the dependent and benefit information, as well as subscriber demographic information, is now pre-populated on the screen for the user. This data matches the current baseline that is used for reconciliation with the carriers. The data that is in CEEM is the current reconciliation baseline as of late July, early August 2014. Many life changes can be accomplished with a very small number of keystrokes now. Doing an APTC change can literally be as easy as a dozen or fewer keystrokes. Let's take a look at how that brand new functionality works within the CEEM 8.2.1 application. Life event functionality in version 8.2.1 is accessed identically to version 7.5.1 of CEEM. Users can move to the Eligibility tab and select Exchange Additions. This will bring up a familiar screen that's been used to add life event transactions for folks within CEEM. We can see at the top of the screen all of the transactions that have gone through CEEM for folks within the QHP community. These records are either in a state of initialized, accepted, or transmitted. Once they become transmitted, they can be used as a baseline for a life event transaction later on. Add subscriber functionality functions identically to version 7.5.1. You pick the MHBE group, the county or division in this case that is applicable for that consumer, and then add subscriber. Big new feature we see here is we do have a section of the screen labeled Find Subscriber. This allows users to enter a HIXID or part of a HIXID and actually pull up any records that match that criteria. I'm going to be looking for one of our test users that has a HIXID of all 7s. So I'm going to type part of their HIXID in and hit Find. CEEM has gone into the database and retrieved any records that match that part of a HIXID. In this case, there's only one test user out there with a matching HIXID section of sevens. I can actually highlight that record and press View Subscriber. This goes into CEEM and pulls up all of the information for that consumer and displays it on the screen. I can see their case ID, HIX ID, effective date, in this case the change date, which would have meant the last transaction sent for our test user, Mr. Hump Wednesday, was sent on 6/1. I can see all of this individual's personal information if it's available. Gender, SSN, contact information, phone numbers and emails if they are there. I can also scroll to the bottom of the screen and see the benefits that were selected by that consumer as well as their dependents. All of this information is available for users of CEEM, so they don't have to retype all of it anymore. Once I've confirmed this is the right individual I want to access, I can just press Update Subscriber. This takes folks back to the identical functionality they had within CEEM 7.5.1. I've selected a user that I want to update, and now I'm walked through the same 3 or 4 questions about what type of transaction I need to create for that consumer. In our case, we're just going to do a simple APTC change. This is going to be a change transaction. The action is going to be an APTC change for the enrolled family. Reason would be, in this case, a financial change. And now I'm going to select Next. This, again, is identical to what was done in CEEM version 7.5.1, with the exception of all of that information we saw within View Subscriber is now pre-populated, so I don't have to rekey any of that information. The main change here, I need to put in a change date. We'll say their change is going to be effective on the 28th of August 2014, and they have a new APTC amount of $123. We'll say that their all of this information has remained the same, so we'll go ahead and say Add Record. And very similar to 7.5.1, except we didn't have to key in all of that information. I can then move to Add Dependents. We see all of our dependents are listed here. Because I'm doing an APTC change, there aren't any quote-unquote affected dependents. All of our dependents are other dependents in this case. I can move to my Benefits tab. Again, I see here that the Blue Choice HSA Bronze 4000 is the plan that this consumer had selected. All we're doing is an APTC change for them, so I shouldn't need to change any of this information. And I can just press Save Changes. At this point, I can review the consumer's record and see that everything is ready to submit a life event for this APTC change with the change date that we specified for our test user. I didn't have to enter any of the dependent information. I did not have to select a plan for that consumer. All of that information is pre-populated based on data that's already out there in the CEEM and Doer applications. So I'll go ahead and hit Submit for processing. This application is now in a status of accepted. CEEM 8.2.1 does contain functionality which will warn users if they're potentially tripping on an existing life event transaction. If there's a transaction in the system that is still in a state of initialized, CEEM will warn the user that they should not attempt to create a new life event for that consumer. I can illustrate this by typing a HIX ID in the Find Subscriber area. I happen to know one that we have in our test region that is still initialized. Again, I can use find. It's going to go out and pull up that particular consumer. If I select update subscriber, I will get a warning. There's an open and or untransmitted transaction for this participant in the system. It's strongly recommended that this transaction not be initiated until the incomplete transaction has been sent to the carrier. If a life event had been started previously in error and needs to be deleted, please email mhbe_ses_team@qssinc.com and we can get that transaction deleted. Thank you very much again, and I hope you've enjoyed learning about this new functionality within CEEM 8.2.1. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, please let us know at mhbe_ses_team@qssinc.com. Thank you again, and of course, as always, have a nice day.